Good evening, Dr. Suyash. Thank you so much for the kind introduction. And good evening, everyone. It's wonderful to be here. And like Dr. Suyash mentioned, I've been a banker in UAE for the last 7 years. And I have myself personally benefited from several programs and certifications I've done at EIBFS. So it's indeed a great honor to be here in this capacity. Now, I have been asked here today to share with you all today my experience with careers in banking. Now, I have been working for almost 17 years now, and almost all of that has been with the large commercial banks. So I hope I will be able to answer some of your questions when it comes to looking at careers in banking as an industry. But before we get to the answers, let's start by questioning the two words that we are tackling today. Yeah. So let's talk about, we'll be talking about what is a career. We will be talking about what is banking. And then as we go along, we'll try and put them back together and answer the topic of today. So let's move on. I hope everyone can see my screen. Now, what is a career? Now, all of us have come across this phrase or some variant of it. Mark Twain said, find a job you enjoy doing, and you will never have to work a day in your life. Now, some people have interpreted it to mean that work should feel like a vacation, it should feel like an easy breeze, while others seem to imply that if you're working too hard or if you're too involved, then it's probably not the right job for you. But I think it's also important that we all take a step back and clarify a few points. So first of all, work is work and play is play. Work is definitely not a vacation. In fact, nothing feels like vacation except vacation itself. And sometimes the vacations themselves are too stressful. So we need to be clear how we set our expectations. We don't set our expectations in the wrong place. And make sure that we look at, when we talk about our work and our career, we are looking at something which is serious, which is something which is beneficial for a long, long time to come. Secondly, we hear this advice from our seniors, from people around us, follow your passion. It's a great advice, and I hope it works out for a lot of us, as many of us as possible. But the problem here could be that for a lot of us, our number one passion may not be a viable career option. It may be a stress buster. It may be something that centers you when you are hassled, when you are tired. But sometimes it may not pay well, at least not always, or at least not as much as we have in mind. So we should follow our passion, but we should not use this as an excuse to write off a good career, a good job, because it's not that one top thing which you call your top passion. The next point I want to highlight, want to address is finding your perfect job. Now, sometimes we hear the advice that keep working until you find your perfect job. Well, the bad news here is the perfect job doesn't exist. But the good news is that no one can stop you from creating it. So whether you are in a large organization or tomorrow you decide to venture out and do something on your own, you can always create your own perfect job, your own perfect fit. And we'll talk about it a little later in the presentation. But don't let this be something that brings you down when you start working or when you start your career journey. And finally, a very used and overused phrase, work-life balance. Now, one thing I can guarantee you based on my experience so far, that the more you love your job, the more you will work and the longer hours you will put in. But also, you will complain less, you will stress out less, you will burn out less. So you need to be mindful of what this phrase work-life balance means for you. Do you judge it by the number of hours you work versus the leisure time? Or is it about deriving happiness and fulfillment from what you do? And similar to most things in life, there is no right answer or a wrong answer, but there is an answer which is right for you. So don't follow the latest management mantra blindly, but keep looking for your right answer. So what should you look for when you are trying to make and target a rewarding career? So let's look at the building blocks. First of all, our work should help us perform from our areas of strength. Now, each one of us has certain innate strengths where we are doing something which is actually energizing us instead of taking away energy from us, instead of draining us out. Now, for me, that area is analyzing information. So whether I'm evaluating an investment product and comparing statistics, or I'm listening to people explain their problems and I'm trying to figure out solutions for them, I like analyzing information, and that's what brings me alive. This is why being an investments product manager has been a good fit for me. And this is why I have sustained in a similar kind of a career for so long, and with wonderful organizations. Now, for some people, this area could be writing, it could be creating music, it could be driving, but anything that we are going to spend more than 60% of our waking time in, let's do something that gives us energy and does not take it away. Now, the other building block, and a very important one, is that we should keep learning and improving. Now, as human beings, we are attuned to look for growth, to look for ways to become better day after day. Doing same repetitive work tends to make us dull, tends to make us disinterested, and ultimately unhappy. So it's great to take degrees and to learn new subjects and do internships. But graduating from college, that is when the real world begins. And that is when you actually start learning. So your job needs to be something that encourages you to keep learning and keep growing. Looking at my experience, I graduated from a top business school with an MBA in 2004. But since then, and I started working. And since then, I have kept up with the industry by taking several qualifications like Chartered Financial Analyst or CFP, Certified Financial Planner, specific exams that are required in my field of work. I have also taken initiatives in my organizations to take programs on technical skills that I needed on job, like project management or programming for bankers. I also took a lot of programs on soft skills, like how to be a better manager, or how to be a multiplier, how to manage my time better, and so on. So this is definitely an important part of a rewarding career that you should look out for. Now, talking about the quality and not the quantity of work. The happiest people you will meet in offices, and indeed it must be true in student life as well, are the ones who are focusing on the quality of what they are doing, not the quantity of hours they put on. The people who are complaining are generally the ones who leave the office the earliest, at 4 o'clock, the earliest they technically can leave the office. But some of the best conversations, some of the best relationship building I have done in my career has been probably really late in the evening when all of us have put in lots of hours on a project deadline. And we are tired, but we are still happy because we have achieved a quality output. So the day we start counting the hours, or we start wondering if anything I'm doing today mattered to anyone or to the organization, that is the day I should get up and just move on. And finally, it's very important to do what matters to you. Now, there is a famous story from Steve Jobs, late Steve Jobs, who was the CEO of Apple. His commencement speech to Stanford's class of 2005. If you haven't seen that, I would highly recommend you check it out on YouTube. So what he says is this: I ask myself in mirror every day, if today were the last day of my life, would I want to do what I'm about to do today? And whenever the answer has been no for too many days in a row, I know that I need to change something. Now, there are days when all of us have to do things which need to be done, may not be a perfect day. But if there is a pattern to these things, we know that we are not going in the direction that we want to take our life in. So you have to live your own life. You have to build your own life doing what matters to you. And it can be anything. It could be things like helping others. It could be something like earning a big lifestyle, buying that fancy private jet. There are, again, no right or wrong answers, but definitely there is one approach which is right fit for you. So now that we've talked about all the heavy things about what our careers, let's move on to the next bit, talking about what is banking. Now, when I say the word banker, what do you think of? Is it the person who, when you visit the branch, it's the person who's sitting in the counter who gives you cash? Or is it the person in the big cabin in the corner? Do you think of the person who is on the other end of the line when you call a call center number? Is it the person who's taking care of, let's say, the online banking platform so that you can do your funds transfers online? Or the person who issued you the credit card and helps you do an online shopping expedition in seconds? Now, these are all correct answers. All of these people are bankers, but they are still not all types of bankers. Banking today is not an industry. It's not the set of companies that just handles your money matters. Today, banking is a super industry. It's a conglomerate of many different industries put together. You have technology, which is specific to banking. There is marketing and sales techniques, which are unique to banking. There are laws and regulations that bankers need to specialize in. And as a result, today, banking jobs can come from several education streams. And bankers themselves come from any and all kinds of backgrounds. Now, I'm going to share with you some of the list of roles that in my experience I have come across in different countries and over time. I have seen them in typical banking organizations. I would like to clarify that within banking as well, there is a common division between commercial banking and investment banking. Now, investment banking relates to more capital market side of activities, things like issuing your shares on stock market or helping you raise bonds and debentures. Whereas commercial banks is what you and me typically think of and what we use every day as customers. If you've heard the phrase Wall Street versus Main Street, then this is what this comparison refers to. And since my experience has been mainly with Main Street banks, that is what I will focus on. Now, there are different ways to look at careers in banking, but one way that I have always found useful is to categorize the job roles based on how close they are to the end customers. So let's look at the kind of roles that are customer facing on one end to the ones that are completely internal work on the other end. And this is not a complete list, not by far. It's not my intention to give you a complete list of what kind of banking jobs exist. But my sole intention is to show you that careers in banking can take a variety of forms. Now, on the customer side of things, we see customer facing side of things, we see roles which relate to sales and service. Now, these are typically staff who are involved in either selling the services and the products of the bank to its customers, or these are the people who are helping the customers by resolving their issues, taking care of their complaints, or taking care of their day-to-day requirements. For certain portions of the bank, the sales and service staff could be relationship managers as well. These could be from corporate banking. This could be from your high net worth private banking, as well as business banking clients. For consumers, retail customers like you and me as individuals, we are typically related to branches as our sales and service network. The other customer facing roles in a bank relate to marketing and social media. And social media is becoming more and more prevalent these days. This is again specialists in the field of marketing and advertising, as well as harnessing the power of social media to build a brand for the organization, for the bank, and also to make sure that brand image stays true. The bank has ways and means to listen to its customers by doing surveys, by having platforms on things like Twitter and other messaging networks, and making sure those feedbacks and inputs are addressed by the relevant people in the bank. Moving on, all the people, the customer facing staff of the bank, all these roles are supported by the internal roles. Now, the first layer of internal roles, which could sometimes be customer facing as well, depending on requirements, but generally are one step away from the direct client interface. Now, these are people like advisors and product managers who are responsible for designing and implementing the product and advice that is offered by the salespeople to the bank, to the customers of the bank. Now, these are again specialists in their functional areas. For me, product management is my small area of specialization in a large banking organization. And I have worked in wealth management specifically, even within product management. So these can be highly specialized roles as well. Plus, they can be generic roles as well, such as product managers for loans, who can take care of your auto loans, plus home loans, plus personal loans altogether. So it really depends on the size of the bank and the requirements on how much specialization it goes for. In addition to that, the frontline staff is also supported by people in the roles of MIS and analytics. This is a highly specialized and focus area once again. These are people who are able to look into the data of the customers of the bank, who are able to look at customer behaviors, who are able to look at customers' transaction patterns, and identify ways in which they can help the customers make better decisions when it comes to their relationship with the bank. In addition to that, there are roles in areas like treasury and research. So a treasury in a bank is essentially the money box of the bank. All the deposits and the deposits of cash and accounts that are done across the branch networks of a bank ultimately lands up as a responsibility for the treasury department to figure out what to do with it. Similarly, all the loans that are being given out to the customers of the bank, again, the treasury is responsible for making sure that the bank has enough money that it is raising from deposits. They're also responsible for making sure that the money that the bank is paying to its deposit customers versus the money it is making out of the loans it is giving to customers actually results in profitable business for the bank as a company. The research department assists not just treasury in assessing what is the state of economy, what is the state of different industries. It also helps relationship managers, advisors, and product managers in figuring out what and how they should design their products and propositions for the customers. So to give you an example, as a wealth management investment product manager, I used to work very closely with our treasury departments and research departments to design investment products that our customers, high net worth customers, should invest their money in, with a reasonable expectation that they will make good returns. And it was possible for us to make those decisions because we had solid research and good inputs coming in from our colleagues in different departments. Now, a corporate, there are certain corporate support groups that also help and make sure that the banking organization keeps on functioning the way it is supposed to. These take form of departments typically called legal. Legal is supposed to look after the laws of the land. There are several laws in the country, in every country that a bank operates. So the legal department is supposed to make sure that everything that people in sales, service, relationship management, product managers, treasury, whatever they are doing are within the laws that apply to the business that the bank is in. And it's not an easy thing because because there are several laws to be taken into consideration. There are several changes in laws that are happening all the time that these people need to be on top of. Now, typically, we would see lawyers and people with degrees in legal works to come and work in the legal department of a bank. But it also helps for them to have experience and knowledge about banking sector per se. Similarly, compliance is a type of role which takes care of regulatory requirements. Now, when I say regulatory requirements, I'm talking about the requirements which are imposed by central bodies in a country, such as central bank. Like in UAE, we have the Central Bank of the UAE. We have Securities and Commodities Authority. Plus, we have other entities which prescribe rules for a banking organization that need to be complied with. Similarly, risk department is a control department. People in risk make sure that what products are being designed and sold to customers are within the risk appetite of a bank. You must have heard of terms like Basel II norms have become mandatory now. These are risk control norms that are globally acceptable and that have been implemented by most of the countries in the world. So a risk department in the organization is responsible for making sure that these guidelines are complied with, and the bank, no department in the bank ends up taking over any risk more than the appetite. And finally, the finance department is the accounts department in the organization, which will make sure that all the numbers tally, that the accounts are in line, that the revenues that the bank is making and reporting, plus the costs that it is incurring across all these activities, are in line with the finances of the bank. Coming on the extreme end, typically these roles do not have major customer facing roles, but that does not mean that they do not impact how the customer's experience with the bank changes. So typical example is your technology department. Now, as I mentioned earlier, when we say banker, you could think of maybe somebody from the technology department in the bank, because you are a heavy user on the online banking platform. Now, those online platforms are possible because there are specialists within banking organization whose job it is to bring that online banking channel and making sure it runs without glitches. Similarly, we have people in operations departments. Now, operations is a very broad term. It applies to anything which involves processing of customers' instructions. Now, I'm making a very generic, very broad statement. But basically, when a salesperson or a service person talks to customer makes a request, somebody has to go back and actually process that request. That typically happens in the operations department. So if you tell your banker that you want to invest, let's say 10,000 dirhams in a particular mutual fund, your relationship manager will take your instructions and send it to the operations department, who will actually deduct the money from your account, send it to the relevant mutual fund company, make sure we get the mutual funds against that money, and maintain custody of that for you. I will close out by talking about audit and governance. Audit and governance are basically control functions in a bank, and we like to say this in our internal conversations, that audit and governance is what keeps us honest. They make sure that everything that is happening in the bank, whether it's from the legal perspective, from compliance and regulatory perspective, from internal processes and risk controls, they are actually getting implemented or not. So they are, in a way, keeping an eye on everything that is going on in the organization. They do audits, they do checks. If they find something which is not working or which is outside the boundaries, they are responsible for highlighting it and making sure we fall back in line. So this overall gives you a big idea about what different kinds of roles and job opportunities or career paths are existent in a typical banking organization. Now, like I said, this is not a complete list. Also, it is not a very rigid list. What I mean by that is there is a lot of fluidity and flexibility between these roles. There are several people who start from a customer-facing career, then over time they realize that they probably can work better or learn better in different roles, so they move on to different departments and different kind of roles. Similarly, there are people who can start from a more internal role in a bank, but they might decide that they want to take on careers in a bit more of customer-facing kind of roles. So they can eventually move on to those kind of roles. So by giving you this big, wide picture of the different kind of roles that exist in a bank, the main point I want to summarize and I want you to take from today's talk is that there is a career in banking suitable for every kind of person, for every functional skill, for every educational background, for every personality type, whether you are an outgoing person, like to meet people, or you are an analytical, research, detail-oriented person. There is a role and a kind of a career path available for you within a banking organization. Whatever is your selection criteria for your career, if you're looking to become specialist in a certain research field, if you're looking to if you will select your career based on how much money you make, or if you want to select a career based on how much ambition you have on fast growth, again, you will find a career path that could be right for you within a bank. And similarly, for every experience level as well. So for people like me with 17 years of work experience, there are great opportunities. When I started my career, I started in a bank, so it was a very different role, but then it was again something which was challenging enough and exciting enough to set me on a career path that I have followed so faithfully for so long. Now, to summarize, I'd just like to say that this is the time that you should spend some time to figure out where your core skills and your strengths lie. Spend some time to hone these skills using education, using your different learning tools you have available, such as internships or industry projects. and try and become better than anyone else when it comes to that one core proposition that you bring to an organization. And there's a very good chance that there's a job out there which is right for your skill set and in a bank of your choice. As a final point, I just want to share with you that I have recently transitioned into a role in a fintech startup company, and I now work in DIFC. So in a way, I have left behind the world of careers in banking. But that said, the extremely valuable learning, the exposure and the maturity that I have gained in the 17-year career in banking is what gives me the confidence that I can do anything now, no matter how big and no matter how challenging. So that is the kind of experience, that is the kind of learning you can expect when you go and explore careers in a banking organization. With this, I would like to conclude my presentation part of today's session. I welcome any thoughts or feedback or any questions that you might have. Dr. Suyash?
Yeah. Thank